All right, welcome back, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Ken Jones. Welcome to another episode of the Disney Movie Review. We talk about movies and music and all that stuff from Disney. As always, joined by my wonderful friends and co-hosts. You know her as Kristen DiBiase. I know her as just amazing. Hi, Kristen.
Aw, that's very nice. Hello, hello, everybody.
You know him as Ed Buzzkirk. I, again, just know him as amazing.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
And you know him as I don't know, um, I guess the creator to my Star-Lord, something like that. It's not the creator. I don't know. To my Rocket Raccoon, maybe? Something like that. My brother Cameron Jones.
Really? And that's
Yeah.
I did
I'm,
testing on you, and that's how you.
Cameron, I don't make the movies, okay?
Okay.
I just watch them and see the
Okay.
similarities that exist inside them.
Okay.
Okay?
So
It's
my
been a
face, this is
while.
not a real face. This is just like
No, you just
okay.
That's what the beard and the
pull it
hair
off.
apparently
Ah,
are. It's my
Okay,
Yes.
it's
favorite.
hiding the clips and
It's
the.
yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Makes
Uh,
sense.
No, but
he's
we
he's
have
a
to
little
start.
rusty. I mean, like he's not used to like hating you on camera like
That
every
is
single
true.
week for a
That is
while.
true.
Like he'll
Yeah,
get back into it.
it's been a couple episodes. By
And
the
it's
way,
much
last
easier to
week
do on audio.
Yeah.
You know, video, it's tougher.
It's like, oh
I have
man,
to
I got to
look at
see
his
your
face.
sad face.
Oh, he doesn't care.
Last week I don't at all, not really. Last week I had travel. I don't know what I was doing last week, but we did something else. But now we have all four of us back, which is wonderful. And I started with Guardians of the Galaxy because that is something where Disney started this week. I'm going to share part of my screen here. You should be able to see this one. There we go. Disney is no longer selling Blu-rays and DVDs in Australia. So apparently, as reported by 7 News in Australia, Walt Disney Company has backed out of the physical media market. This is supposed to be immediate. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is supposed to be the last that they put on physical media. Disney said this is because of sales. They haven't been able to find enough, or DVD sales, Blu-ray sales have been plummeting in Australia, and they're really plummeting around the world, including in the U.S., and they're pulling it from Australia. A lot of people are saying that this is something that's going to be coming to the U.S. When we talked about this a little earlier this week, Ed, I know that you were very passionate about this, so I want to go to you first. What are your thoughts on this new physical media, issues with physical media?
Well, I'm I'm very, very troubled by this, mainly because we've seen so many things disappear off of streaming and not be available anywhere else. Right now, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, so I don't want to. Well, I'm going to beat this drum again. There are not even all of the canon Disney animated films on Disney Plus. So the only place that you can get those actually is on physical media. They're not even available on digital. You can't go outside of Disney Plus and see them. You have to buy them on physical media. So when they stop producing those physical media discs, then there will be no way to watch those movies. And so without physical media, the studios can take away these properties at any time. Or we go back to a system where all you're really doing is renting the movies that you watch. You may be renting it for a subscription price, but you're still renting the movies that you want to watch. And maybe you're renting them for $15 a month, but it's still a rental fee. And in order to watch those movies, you're going to have to pay that fee. And you have to pay it every month, or you have to pay it every time you want to watch the movie. And that's troubling to me. I like to be able to own my media. I've got a big media shelf in the other room, has every one of those Disney canon movies that most people can't even see on streaming.
Yeah, yeah. Totally makes sense. Cameron, I know you're passionate about this. I'll let you go as well.
Well, it's, I mean, just to piggyback off what Ed said, like you're losing these things forever whenever they go off streaming. I'm thinking about this young kid who starred in this show. It wasn't a show; it was a movie on Disney Plus. Better Nate Than Never. They took that off, and that's gone. Like that was never released on physical copies, and so now, like here, he did a big production film, and he has nothing to show for it. It's like, what'd you do? Oh, I did this movie, Better Nate Than Never. Well, look, you can see the credits and stuff. Well, I can't. I want to watch you how you were in it. Oops. Like that's not okay to me. That's even more of a reason why actors and writers should strike, because their work that Disney can bring back at any moment and make more money and do all this stuff, like, is just being lost forever.
Kristen, you were talking before we started recording. You said, without any hesitation, anybody that is striking right now against the studios, you're in favor of them. Tell me more about that.
I absolutely. I mean, this is not transitioning in a way that is egalitarian or utilitarian. So if we look at what we're talking about right now, this is not the Disney vault of old, where Disney's like, okay, this is our money making concept. We're going to create this false scarcity where people are going to, gold rush in and buy up all of these copies of the physical media during a limited period of time. And then we're going to put it away until we feel like doing it again, like the video version of McRib, if you will. This is not that. Like, it goes completely away forever. So not only is there stuff where you see the example that Cameron talks about where there's literally no proof that you ever actually did a thing other than some other place that is a chronicle. Sure, like right now, everybody knows about IMDb, but does every company have staying power ever anymore? We are outsourcing the archival pieces of culture and history to private companies generally. I just sound like super like crazy socialist right now.
No.
But it is true. I just got done watching a movie that it just talks about how the people who are in power are the ones who create the narrative. They shape the future. They also retcon the past. They are in control of the story of everything except for what is immediately in front of us in the present right now. And even the present right now is now up for debate depending on who and what is controlling the message. So when you look at it at that really, really zoom out big idea level, that's what this is. This is a major cultural change in terms of how we look at what do we keep, what do we value, who are the arbiters of what really happened at any given point in time. And so even if it's just the stories that we tell and they are fictional stories and we are all in agreement that they're fictional stories, whose stories are they? Who was instrumental in making those stories, and who gets to be the people who keep and continue to pass on those stories? Period.
Yeah, no, because I'll give you one more. Like, part of this is a copyright problem. You talk about Better Nate Than Never. Assuming they actually have the copy, they actually have that physical media, and they can upload it. Let's say they upload that to YouTube. Disney can bring a copyright suit against that and say, no, that's ours. We just don't put it in any places. And yeah, that's just another area of this. There's actually two problems I have with this. Two really big problems I have with this. And I'm going to illustrate them with these wonderful movies that I have here. One is the Diamond Edition of Lady and the Tramp. This was also came out of the vault at one time. And another is Polly. We've talked about Polly at some point. So let me go ahead and just start with Polly, because I think Polly is a wonderful, I'm not going to call it wonderful, but it is a nice, fun movie, right? Like, look at these little kids, like, singing their hearts out, little snapping, all that stuff. If you can't hear this, it's because Disney doesn't want you to hear this. This is the music Disney doesn't want you to hear. And this is a movie that I enjoyed several times as a child, and so I bought the physical copy. There is nothing Disney can do to take this physical copy out of my hands. This is my physical copy of the little kids dancing and singing around and doing all of that stuff. It never leaves Disney Plus. It never leaves my house. It never it could leave my house, but you know what I'm saying? That is one of my problems. Like, my kids do not have will only have access to this movie because I own it. It's not on Disney Plus. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And like what you said, Kristen, other people are controlling the narrative around. There's a young Keisha Knight Plum, and you could see her in her dress. That's why. That's why you got to watch this on YouTube, people. Yeah, you can see things when it comes to like just different movies. There are some movies that you may have grown up with, you may have seen on the Wonderful World of Disney, exactly like Polly, that you may have liked, and you may have been able to purchase it, and now that's no longer the case. You can't purchase it anymore. So obviously you have that one kind of area that you have. But my bigger thing, and I'm going to go again back to the Lady and the Tramp second edition, or not second edition, the Diamond edition for Lady and the Tramp. Lady and the Tramp, the Diamond edition, is the reason I know about the Walt Disney Family Museum. Because when I bought Lady and the Tramp, the Diamond edition, it has an intro from Diane Disney. And Diane Disney talks about the Walt Disney Family Museum that exists in San Francisco. Prior to watching this movie, I had no idea about the Walt Disney Family Museum. Now, I could have gotten it from the internet, I could have gotten it from a lot of places, but I got it from learning about one of my favorite companies through this physical media. Now, what's the problem with that? The problem is that there is no like Diane Disney real thing that exists on Disney Plus. When you look at the extras around Lady and the Tramp, I think they maybe have one thing about Walt and his dogs, maybe one thing, and then a couple deleted scenes, and that's basically it. And so for me, it's not only that Disney is controlling the media and doing all of that, we're also losing a lot of these extras that we had that came with the DVDs and the Blu-rays and all of that stuff. Like, this thing, I got to tell you, these and the other like Blu-rays and special editions and all of that stuff, this is chock full of just history, just how we made this video, all that stuff. It makes the stuff that's on Disney Plus now look like, I don't know, a coloring book compared to a Picasso painting or something like that. So, I don't know. Those are my two things, that I have. Now, all of that being said, I can't remember the last time I actually bought a DVD or a Blu-ray. So, as I sit here and I'm upset and all of that, I do also have to take that into a case. But, Kristen, I want to go back to you for a business case here. Do you think that this is actually a business case, or do you think that it is more a play for like more just, I guess, content control?
I think, honestly, why not both? Is one of my favorite things, to say. For them, there is a business case. It costs them money to produce the physical media if we are going to have physical media versions of this stuff. So you've got production costs, you've got materials costs, you've got the labor that makes the literal, the DVDs or the Blu-rays and presses them and all of that stuff to literally create this physical disc that goes in a machine. You've got the people who out there in the world who are the ones who are building the machines. And people aren't building as many of those anymore because people don't use these anymore. Streaming is how everybody is getting most of their media now. The people who still have those old media players continue to use them because there's literally no other way for them to play the media they own unless they go and get, the software that would allow them to then rip the media that they own off of their physical media and then save it digitally on their own servers or computers or whatever, which I know a lot of people are doing because that's the only way you can find some of the stuff, just like Polly, which, Polly, it was so good. I'm sorry, like it was. So
you got two votes there. If you haven't seen it, maybe you can get it on Amazon. I don't know. But,
I vote for Polly as well. I vote for Polly.
Yeah.
Well, you got 4 because I've seen it too. It's a
Yeah,
great movie.
see?
Good.
So Polly is our
Look,
movie.
it's the old school. I'm gonna completely digress for a moment, but like the old school versions of "Hey, it's this, but it's black" are really good. Like the modern versions of "Hey, it's this, but it's black" are mid at best. Let's be real. Um,
It's the story of Pollyanna.
it
And
It
is,
is.
That's-
Yes.
but black.
Yeah, exactly. But it's got great actors. It's
Yes.
well directed. The production value is outstanding, and it didn't cost $120 million to make.
Right. Right.
And
about
I'll
it.
tell you, let me digress for a moment because there's a couple of other things that bother me about this happening. I'm a huge, you all know, everyone knows I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I have 8 different copies of Star Wars on Laserdisc. That's the old school Laserdisc,
Oh,
the big
wow.
ones. I've
Wow.
got video cassettes, every video cassette version of it that was released, and then DVD versions, Blu-ray versions, and I do still own them on digital. Now, almost every one of these is different because it's been changed almost every time it's been released. And the version that you see on streaming now is not any of the 47 versions that I have in the other room. The version that you see now is the version that they want you to see. It's not the version that was originally created. It's not the version that I saw in theaters when I was 6 or 5. It's the version that's most current or that they want you to see. And nothing stops the studios from going in and changing those digital codes to give you a new version of it, and you lose what came before. In the 30s, I think it was the 30s or the 40s, excuse me, I don't know the date, I'd have to look it up. But Warner Brothers had a huge fire on their lot. All of the film is very, very flammable. And Warner Brothers had a huge fire on their lot, and they lost years and years and years of silent films. They're completely lost to history. We can never recover those. And this is very much like that. It's the digital version of that fire where we could lose tons of film that no one will ever be able to see again.
Yeah, that's true. That has already happened. So the way they did it with Spider-Man Across the Universe, Spider-Man Across the Spideyverse.
Just a couple of months ago. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
They had 2 different versions depending on what you saw, and it wasn't like there was some line that was changed, and I can't remember what it was. But now that it's being released to digital, you're only getting one version. And I do feel like the person with the tinfoil hat, very similar to you, Ed. That's what they want you to see. You're only seeing what they want you to see. But it's true. Like, they don't release media the same way when it comes to streaming. And I think that's probably my biggest thing. Like, if you actually package the streaming the similar way that they did with DVDs or all of these things, where if I've seen, Princess and the Frog 300 times and I really want to watch it, oh my gosh, I miss this so much. Director commentary. Like, I want to watch it with the director commentary on and list. I cannot tell you how much I miss the director commentary on some of these things. I can't do that. Now, I can watch everything in like Spanish, which is nice because I'm learning Spanish, but like there's still a lot to be desired when it comes to digital media. So I honestly feel like, even though I haven't bought a physical disc in a long time, I almost feel like it's a little premature to get rid of physical disc until it can match up with that. So we spend a lot of time on that. Oh, go ahead. I'll give you last word,
I've
Ed.
got one more thing,
No.
then I'll step off my soapbox. I'm sorry. It doesn't cost them anything to do a print-on-demand version of films. They can have 100 different versions of any movie that they want to, but give me a print-on-demand version of the movie that I want to see. And I don't care if it's Polly. I don't care if it's Lady and the Tramp. I don't care if it's Song of the South. Those things should not be kept from the public because they've been put out there in the public, and that's part of our history. Whether you like
Song in the South.
Whether you like it
The
or not.
woke edit.
No. I agree. History, definitely. Oh, and the other thing too, because we
Oh my
buy
God.
records.
we're cracking up because in our minds, like we're all going down that road and imagining what that edit would look like. Yo, I would watch that. It'd be like zippity doo dah, zippity yay. We enslaved you, and that was not cold. Yeah, something like that. Like we let you
That's a
free
great
now, but
song,
it took
Kristen.
for a year. You still are stuck here. We're gonna sharecrop together. Yay! Oh my God.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's going to be on the new Tiana Bayou ride. I just can't wait to once you get down that hill. It's
We
Oh,
need to
we're
send
all
this to Morton while he's writing the songs for it. Hey PJ, we got the song for you. Here you go, man.
got a little something.
oh
Oh.
gosh. Okay. Yeah.
He's
No.
happy because we can't cry or we get sick.
Okay. All right. We're moving on. We are moving on. But you're right, Ed. I like a print-on-demand service, and also because I buy LPs now, just raise the price. Like literally, raise the price. People will buy what they want to buy. Don't
Should we
just
tell people what a laser disc is?
no, no. That's what Google's for. Um, so, okay. Speaking of finding out about things, this week I learned a phrase that I thought was really cool until I learned the way people use it, and then I found out, oh, it's not so cool. So, what I was reading about was Secret Invasion, and I don't know. I mean, if you haven't seen Secret Invasion, it's not. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. It's not for the reason that a lot of other people wouldn't recommend it. But Secret Invasion, it has Samuel L. Jackson coming back in the role of Nick Fury,
And he's old.
and he's old. Ooh, he's old. And it has, the Skrulls from Captain Marvel, and there's all of this stuff, and that's the whole reason it's called Secret Invasion is because you have all these Skrulls and they're changing and blah 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 blah. But as I was reading about Secret Invasion, I came across this thing that said this is the part of the new MCU, not like MCU, right? Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's SHEU, and in the universe. And I was like, oh, what a cool phrase! Like the MCU, yeah. Like we're getting women more involved, and we're getting main characters, and I love this. That is not like the way people use it. The way people use it, if you were to look on like Reddit or like anything like that, it is a very I don't know how to say it, paternalist. What is it? Patriarchy sort of thing of like, why are there so many women that exist in this? Everything is all this. Oh, look, the subtitles are on. You can read what he's saying. Everything like that. And so. Yeah, it's very interesting to have that, and not to be too sexist here, but I'm gonna let Kristen go first on here. Kristen, when you're seeing all of the women superheroes coming out, right? We have the Marvels that is coming out next. We have She-Hulk. We have Gaia, which is oops, I shouldn't have. There's a woman that comes out of Secret Invasion.
You know what? You can bleep it in post.
In post, I'm not going to bleep it in post, but we could. We could bleep it in post. That's true. That's true.
New Ken does not care.
New Ken is not. I'm not doing that much. I'm sorry. If
you really wanted to know, you would already know.
You would have
Exactly.
watched
That's
Secret
true.
Invasion.
That's true. It's not like you're waiting on it. But what are your thoughts on all the what are your thoughts on the new MCU?
So I didn't know about this either. And when you said MCU, I'm like, oh, okay. Is that kind of like how they're like, oh, CEO, which is, boss ladies, women who are leading companies and in high positions of executive power. And so, yeah, that was disappointing to hear. It's like this, like the first set of heroes that came together in the MCU, there was only one woman, and it was Natasha Romanoff. Like, Black Widow is cool, right? But like, she's not super powered. She's not a mutant. She's just a really well trained and well disciplined, like Russian person. and,
She's
and
Girl Nighthawk.
I'm saying she's herself, and Yelena is the same.
Natasha, you're you.
You are you. You are, but think about it like this though. I mean, just by herself, like she was still like technically like stronger than say Hawkeye,
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah.
right? I
I'd
mean, she
rather
could,
take Natasha
just
than Hawkeye.
beat people down like with her bare hands and feet and whatnot. But that was it. That was like the only female person, and then they brought in Carol Danvers, and that was weird
You
because it was
skipped right
like
over Scarlet Witch, man. You were just like,
she's not a hero. I think she's a mixture of things, right?
She's an anti-hero
yeah,
kind of.
And
yeah.
she's part of this next phase. Like she wasn't one of the originals. I'm talking
Yeah,
about like
okay.
the Avengers, like
Yeah.
the original team up.
So we're talking Thor, Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America,
Right. That was
Hawkeye, and so the six that were in the little circle when the
Yeah.
Chitauri. Actually, I'm gonna pull it up so I can get
people
it.
who show up in Rogers the Musical.
No, because that one guy wasn't even there. Was it Ant-Man? They had it.
Except for
Oh
Ant-Man.
my gosh!
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Rogers the Musical, please watch it.
It's amazing. Just watch it on YouTube because it's going to be gone before the end of the summer. I'm sad I don't get to see it in person like Cameron does, which honestly is an affront to me because I live on this side of the country now. But there were bound to be more women going forward. It was kind of, I mean, an inevitability because you only had one before. And so if we're moving into this new phase, these are the characters we have left, from among whom we are going to be like picking and choosing to create our next set of stories. Especially if we're looking at who are we allowed to even use so we can do our favorite thing, which is just, shoving IPs left and right into everything within the parks, knowing that there are certain things that we can never use in Florida. Because that's still a thing in a lot of ways. So the fact that there are more women showing up isn't in and of itself like this whole, like, oh my gosh, everything is just totally woman focused now. Because especially when you look at like the storylines that some of these people are getting, some of these movies and TV shows they could stand a little bit more nuance. Like, all the people who hated on She-Hulk, okay, there were some pieces about that were like, did you really like? I don't know. Did she have to twerk with Megan Thee Stallion? Maybe not. But
No, she did
for
not.
those of
No,
us
there's
who
no
are-
maybe in that. Say no. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, she did not. Nobody wants to see giant green cakes. That's all I'm saying. But for those of us who are women, who are lawyers, uniformly, every woman lawyer I know enjoyed She-Hulk because we're lawyers and there were lawyer things in it and they were actually lawyerly, including the patriarchy that was there. I think people really hated She-Hulk because it was the most pointed in making fun of patriarchy and incels and all of those other subgroups of people. And honestly, we haven't seen what's going to happen going forward, but there will be things that tie back to that show. We already know. We see people that are already, speculating about that. And that was one of the things that I did enjoy about Secret Invasion because it did bring up some of those threads that could be tied in. I'm hoping that the Marvels does okay because it looks kind of mid from from what I have seen with that. But then there's also this thing of, are men even watching some of this stuff in the first place? The reason that there's no interest, I think, on some people's part is because they haven't done all of the scrambling around to watch every single ancillary show. And so that's a general thing that's a problem for everybody with the MCU. You have to watch every single show now to find out about like major plot points that, for real, they threw that in a show. They're not going to talk about this in an actual movie. So that's across the board. But then take that and then layer upon it the fact that a bunch of dudes who were like, why are we always talking about women so much? Like, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to watch those shows. So they're not going to have any interest in the movies that then feature the same characters that came from those shows. I mean,
Yeah.
and then you see how some of the women characters were treated in the various films once they were on the scene. Captain Marvel has this entire movie, like, just to herself, where it introduces her, it kind of explains, like, how did she get here in their version of what has gone down. And then it's like, bye. Next time you see her, she's like, yeah, I've been off, doing stuff and I got a haircut. Okay. Like, where's the continuity that makes us want to care about these characters the way we cared about the original set of Avengers? It's lazy.
So can I say, a couple things. Like, I think you're absolutely right. I think, so part of me feels like women got involved in the MCU too late. And what I mean by that is, so I like, check out this this screen. I had this up for just a second while you were talking, Kristen. And again, this is the whole group of Avengers. This was the first Avengers movie, and these are the Avengers. These are the people that we're following. You have Thor on one side. You have Hawkeye. You have Natasha. All of these. Now replace this. Completely flip this and make it all women and one man. How do you feel about that?
I think it's great.
My thing is, but hold on. Because my thing is, if you can't just be okay with that concept, I'm not even talking about the actual characters or any of the powers or anything like that. Like, if you literally cannot look at this picture and flip it and say, am I okay with that concept of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. I counted too fast. 5 female superheroes and 1 male superheroes with no power. Well, Natasha has something. I don't know what it is. But a gun, with basically a gun. Pew, pew. Then that's it. The reason I say that I think that women got involved in the MCU too late is because the MCU had started to be criticized for large CGI battles, how many powers, people are having, all of this stuff. And it doesn't know what to do. I don't want to say it doesn't know what to do with women. It's providing the female characters with the same exact powers as the men had. Like, even in, I'm going to ruin Secret Invasion, okay? If you wanted it, you should have seen it, all that stuff. But even in Secret Invasion, the whole point at the end with Gaia is that she basically gets all the powers of the people that had come before her, which is where Marvel's been at before. So I think there's two things. I think you're right, Kristen. There's people who are like, I'm just not going to watch it. I'll be lost, whatever, fine. But I think there's also this idea of storytelling where Marvel's like trying to do some of the stuff that it's already done, and it doesn't really make sense. Like the She-Hulk, the twerking, like that might have worked, I think, maybe a long time ago. But I don't think it works now. I don't think it works with where the MCU is. I don't think it works with that character personally. I did not see that. To me, it came out of nowhere. But but yeah. Cameron, I'll let you go now because I had my say.
No. The only thing I was going to say is when you are used to privilege, equality feels like oppression. And so, like, having like you said, if you can't look at that picture and flip all 5 men into women and then have one man and be like, yeah, okay, I could see that. And you're like, oh, what are all these women doing here? Yeah, like you need to examine your privilege because that is not equality. And you can say, oh, this is not true to the story. There are, just thinking it like off the top of my head, like there are different, like we already had oh gosh, what's her name, Jane as Thor. Like there was
Yeah.
Captain not, oh gosh,
Captain Carter.
Britain.
yes, Captain Carter.
Yes, Captain Carter. Yes.
Like we have She-Hulk, like and then Pepper as so
Yeah.
we have all of
Spicy pepper.
like we have all of these things.
Ironheart too. Like,
yeah, exactly. So that's my thing is don't get so caught up in your privilege that you're seeing equality and you're like, oh, they're oppressing me. Like, no, like please realize that you were privileged and that things were not equal. And so now when we're making it equal, that is not oppression to you. That is equality.
Yeah, love it.
Well, I'll say from the old people standpoint, I'll say back when I was a kid, we read these things in comic books, and these characters were in comic books, and we read about these characters. So this is nothing to the old school people. This is really nothing new. And universes, Marvel included, not just DC, but they've been resetting these things over and over again and doing new takes, bringing in new characters that have the exact same powers and stuff. They've been doing that for almost 100 years now. So I don't understand where all the hate's coming from. I personally can't wait to see the Marvels. Not really for the story. I'm not excited for the story. I'm excited to see Kamala Khan again because I loved her and her family from the series. I loved that series.
It was so good.
And me and my 13-year-old son are the one that's been watching all these. My wife and daughter have kind of checked out because they don't want to follow all the threads. So all these women's stories, me and my son are watching them, and we're loving them. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't know where these criticisms are coming from.
Well, number one, you're not old, Ed. There are people that are way older. Number two, even if you were old, you're not old in your attitudes whatsoever.
Yes.
You are extremely young and forward-thinking in that way, which is why we love you.
I think legit though, like to put what Ed said on point, like I think Ed just paid attention. We were talking about Ed like he's not here or whatever, but I literally think he just paid attention to what was in the comics. Like people talk about woke stuff and this is so woke and this is so bad and all this stuff. But then people will come up with the comics like literally issue 5. Like this is what happens in issue 5. Like if you just read it, it's in issue 5, like years ago. So like it's now if you didn't grow up like reading them or looking at certain things like that, then yeah, no, I get it. But
and
yeah,
that was literally the reason for the comics. Like the comics were there to be this way to slip social commentary and report on what was happening in the country and in the world in those times in a way where like it was sneaking veggies in desserts in that way. Like perhaps maybe that the people that read this will see the themes of equality and not othering people and trying to push for a better society and working together in a collaborative way. And maybe they'll apply those things to their everyday lives, perhaps. But no, there's definitely people like who read the comics and that just completely went over their heads.
Right.
yeah.
They saw the bam, boom, wow, that, yeah.
Bam, poo, wow, zap. Yes,
Yeah.
I like it.
Point.
Okay.
I like that one.
Let's talk about one more thing. Okay. One more thing that we have to talk about is the Disney parks. Disney recently announced two things that I thought were very telling about how in trouble the Disney company is right now, or at least when it comes to park, how in trouble they are. The first is this new 2-day Florida resident ticket. And if you're a Florida resident, you can now have a 2-day Disney park ticket for $159. And this is valid through September 29th. And I think you have to go to, oh, well, no, I thought you had to go to Epcot or Animal Kingdom, but you get the 2-day pass for $159 for 2 days at Disney. Now, I'm not going to say that Bob Iger listens to the show and decided to do what we said, but we had talked about bringing back the half-day ticket. The half-day ticket, if you remember, was for parks that were not Magic Kingdom, and it was like $88 per day, and I believe it was sold in like 2-day increments. So you had to have the half-day ticket. Now, Bob, I'm not going to say that you stole my idea about bringing this back. What I am going to say is I've never wanted to be more of a Florida resident in my life. So you look at something like that, and then you also see that Disney brings back Tom Staggs and Kevin Mayer to consult on ESPN. They consult on the parks. They're consulting for Disney. Now, of course, Tom Staggs had been, he wasn't really let go. He left Disney. Kevin Mayer, same deal, left Disney before. Cameron, I know this is really big news to you, so I'm going to start with you. What are you thinking of this whole thing?
A couple of things. I don't think Disney is really as in trouble as they're saying. It's just that because these corporations are beholden to profits and continuing to improve year over year, having a huge year of revenge travel, like they're not going to get that again. And some of the stuff that I've seen is if you look at travel pre-pandemic and compare that to this year, like they're up. So when you have this thing of, oh my gosh, we had all these people here, and it was a unique situation coming out of a pandemic. Everyone was like, well, we can travel now. Let's travel. And everyone did. Well, now that's over. You can't expect to reach this epic monument again just from normal travel. And I think instead of treating it as an anomaly and naming it as such, they want to act like, oh, no, everybody wanted to come to Disney that year, and everyone still wants to come to Disney. No, come on. Just understand, like, take that L. Like, hey, that was a great year, but that was a unique situation, which we hope to never be in that position again, because literally they had to shut down the parks in order to get to that. But to have Kevin and Tom come back in, that is very interesting, because usually Michael Eisner, as much as he was hated, like by the end of his tenure, at the beginning of his tenure, like, I remember Michael Eisner being like Walt Disney. Like, he was in everything. Like, I remember him coming out and sitting. What was it? It was before the Wonderful World of Disney. It was before, like, in all the advertisements, all this stuff. I knew who Michael Eisner was even before I was a really big Disney fan. Like, I liked Disney, but I was not, oh, yeah, Disney. I was not a huge Disney fan. So having someone who's been out of the company and coming back into the company, I'm very curious, because Tom Staggs was supposed to be the CEO of the Disney company, and it wasn't until it was him and
Rizzullo.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Jay Rizzullo. Yes, good job.
Neither of them became
I mean, we could retread what happened there a little bit, and honestly, we need to give Cameron like his props, because he's the only person among the four of us who was on that Staggs is coming back train. So
we don't give Cameron any. I don't know if you've been on the show before, Kristen, but we do not give Cameron props. That is not what we do.
If you mean the collective we, you're correct. I feel that I have a responsibility because his brother is extremely abusive to him.
I'm used to it.
Used to it. You missed all the creation that happened back in. That's where I where I was like, hurt. And yeah, you missed that part.
Okay.
Yeah,
And when I was hunting you down while you go like, I don't
exactly.
know. That's why
It's
you
That's
the
never
why we
see
don't
best
live
pictures
in
of
the
us
same
one.
together
state
because
now.
I'm
That's
hunting
right.
him
That's why,
down.
right.
He has to hide.
Why do
I
you think my
mean,
room looks the same in his? So he doesn't know exactly where I'm at. Um, I cut you off. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kristen. You were saying.
Cameron's the only one who had it on his bingo board, the return of stags, um, because, and let's all admit to like why that even occurred in the first place. Because back in the first round of the 5 billion, I'm gonna leave, but no, not quite yet, that Bob Iger did, he got fed up and he decided, you know what? I value me. I do not put stock in like how I'm being treated. I'm bouncing. And he left, like, and good for him because they would not give this man an inch. They would not even say like you're possibly a putative successor in some far off galaxy at which time after Bob Iger has decided he can, do nothing else further and blah blah blah, et cetera, et cetera. They would not even give the man that. I mean, they were doing the stuff behind the scenes that like one would be doing to prep the successor in at least at that time that we know of as Disney would always do because in the old Disney thing you needed to be in every single sector of the company and they'd start making people jump around and switch jobs with other people so they could get that stuff under their belt so they could say this person's been trained in every aspect of the Walt Disney Company because the the person who runs this company has to be a visionary that has all of these different skill sets. Now, I don't think that that is doable anymore. This place is too big. We talked about that before on another show, so I won't go back into it. Um, but like they did the stuff behind the scenes, but they would not give this man some shine in the media or even to the board to just be like, yeah, we think it's probably going to be you. We're going to prepare you. And so, in my opinion, he rightfully was like, bye, deuces, and he pieced out. And Rizzullo, like, as well. So both of them were played shady. I really didn't think that the Stags would come back, but I mean, it looks like he has the option now. He's coming back on top because the company's not doing so hot. My how the worm has turned.
Well, the interesting thing, and I didn't know this until reading about it, but Staggs and Meyer are co-CEOs of a company right now. And I literally, we've talked so much about this, how this job really cannot be done by one person. Like, you really need two individuals. You need the business, you need the creative. Like, that is what makes this whole thing work. It's what's made it work from the start of everything.
A
But I will
Walt and the
disagree.
Roy, if you will.
Yes, the Walt and the Roy, exactly.
Right.
I will disagree with one thing Cameron said. He's going to say that it's play money and all of that stuff, but it's still a indication of how a company's doing. If you look at Disney's stock prices over the past, because I find this to be incredibly interesting. I don't know if I can make this bigger by any chance or anything. So it's just small. You're gonna have to deal with it. But you have this chart of Disney's performance over the past couple of years, right? And I don't know why this read. It's because it's down in the past 5 years. First of all, down in the past 5 years. No investor likes to see that. Down in the past 5 years, right? But also, there's this period here where there's a meteoric rise up and then a fall down to like November 22, and then it kind of levels out. Anybody know what happened during this meteoric rise up? Do we remember what happened in, like March of 2022? Yes, there was a pandemic, but also Disney got a new CEO. And this whole period of profits and we're doing well and look at all the money we're making and we're bleeding the consumer dry, but look at all the profits. Comes that whole thing comes from Mr. Bob Chapek. And Chapek. Not good. Anyways, this is the highest the Disney stock has ever been. And that's what investors are looking for. If you look over the time period of where Disney's stock has been over the past X amount of years, 20 years, 30 years, Chapek had the highest stock that was ever there. And that's where I believe Disney's trying to get back to. Like, you have this era of unprecedented growth that comes from Iger and whatnot, and it happens. And then you get Chapek, and it goes even higher. And that's where I think people are saying, like, Disney's in trouble and all of that stuff. It's because of so many things that's happening in the parks, but also because the stock in the company is falling. It's just not as valuable as it once was.
You're just not making as many billions.
The stock market is a scam, okay?
Oh my, here we go. I shouldn't have brought it up, but it's a good point. It's a good point.
That it's a scam, yes. I totally agree with Kristen that the stock market is a
Seriously,
scam.
though, the stock market is a scam. It is people who take money and then the value of that money either grows or shrinks based on vibes.
Yeah.
That's literally,
Yeah.
that's basically what the stock market is. And when everybody's vibes are really bad, the market crashes and it ruins the entire economy. Why are we running our entire economy on this like side rail of vibes?
Stock
Let's be
market is
real.
more Gen Z than Gen Z.
It is. Right? Like
No,
Gen Z
man.
couldn't even come up with the stock market.
Vibes are off, man. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Right? And
Your money is just as safe on a poker table.
Yeah.
seriously.
That's true. Yes, exactly.
But the problem is that is literally the only way that any of us can get ahead and like save money for retirement. But even within that, right? Like the only way to play the game in this sketchy, vibey thing that is the stock market is to just put your money in, turn your back on it, and show up again like 50 years later and pull out whatever is there.
Yes.
To do anything else is foolish, honestly. Because the market will go up over time because that's how our stupid, weird capitalist society works. They just make money and then they just make some more money until the point that everything gets to the point where, honestly, I think it is rapidly approaching, which is late stage capitalism, where we all learn it was all a scam all along and everything breaks down. Because, if you look at the time when Iger was here, that's steady growth over time, which is what anybody wants to see in a portfolio, because the decisions that were being made were carefully balanced. They are looking at every single thing for how this company runs, including its reputation among the people who are the ones who are their core fans, who will continue to come back and keep spending money with them. And the moment you get away from the values of a company, if your company cares about values, because some don't, cough, what's his face with the pharma frat dude or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
The moment you move away from your company's core values, if your company is a company that has those, that is the beginning of, sure, like you can ride and play the ponies and try to like shoot the moon, and you're going to make a lot of money in a short period of time, but you are going to absolutely degrade the value and the reputation of your company. And that is currently what the Disney company is stuck with.
Yes.
And I think you're all right, number one, about the revenge travel thing. I'll take it out of Disney completely. You all know I work in a law school. Every single law school had a huge jump in the same period that you see the Chapek era when those stocks all went up. We all had crazy numbers of people trying to get into law school because the pandemic happened. People don't like going to school, Zoom school of law. So a lot of people decided they weren't going to go to law school or apply to law school during that period. And now it's revenge law school application that occurred. And everybody had great numbers and admissions was insane for the last 2 years. Now we're back to normal. It's still up over what it was before the pandemic, just like Cameron said, but we are down from last year in terms of like admissions numbers of what people did. That is every industry We
Yeah.
are all seeing that happen. So I think what would be fair for the vibey, like people who keep playing around and like, gaming the stock market to do would be to pretend like the last 2 years didn't exist, cut that
Well,
out,
that's
stitch it together. We're still above where we were before this. So folks are doing pretty good. But having said that, the stuff that they did during that revenge period has permanently damaged Disney's reputation, and it has put them in the
yeah,
situation they are currently in. And that's their
yeah,
bad because they could have done something very different than what they did during that time, and they will be reaping those rewards for many years to come.
yeah. Ed, you've been quiet. Do you want to say anything, or I can go? I got stuff.
I I think everything that needs to be said has already been said. I
I
mean,
feel like I've been preaching. I'm sorry.
no, you've been great. You've explained it far better than I could. We're just the problem is we're in a place where it's not enough to make a large amount of money. We need to make a larger amount of money, and that's a problem.
Yeah. That the interesting thing, like, if you work at a company and they are talking about the pandemic years in a way that isn't like those were weird years or those were odd years or something like that, you should probably go to a different company because the pandemic, like, I work as an analyst, and as the any analyst, any good analyst that exists at a company will tell you the patterns that we've seen from the 2020, 2021, little bit of 2022 into 2022, we start getting back to some normal patterns. But that whole chain, you can't predict stuff based off of that. That just take that out of your mind. There's a new way that we're getting data and all of that stuff. And so I agree. I mean, we were talking a little bit before this whole show about, like, AI and how much AI has come into play in the writer strike, and the Secret Invasion had AI generated titles, and can AI steal jobs and all this stuff. And I think it's interesting because the way that the world has come and the way that the world has changed since like the 40s or whatever is like AI was supposed to take our jobs. Computers were supposed to take our jobs so that we could live lavish lives and we'd just be making money and we'd be all fine and everything like that. And what's happened, the reality that's played out is exactly what Ed was saying, what Kristen was saying, Cameron was saying. Like, we could have AI and it could take people's jobs. It is taking people's jobs. Even though that AI is not as good as the people that are doing the jobs, it is taking people's jobs and having AI. But it's not good for it's not good for the worker. It's good for 1% of the population, and that's it. The workers are not getting a good deal in this whole, like, the way that things work. But the one glimmer, honestly, the one glimmer of hope I see is what's happening to the Disney company right now. Because and the reason I say that is because there has been such a blowback to the Disney company of all of the, nickel and diming they've been doing, all this stuff, everything we've been talking about for years. Finally, there is that blowback, and you're like, look, like, we're not going to come to Disney World. We're just not going to come to Disney World if that's the way it's going to be. And it's like, literally, they're discounting, like, okay, but what if we did this? But what if we did this? But what if we did this? And I feel like that is going to keep the companies honest. I feel like the consumer by itself, the consumers, the people, the fans, all of that stuff, we can keep these companies honest by supporting the striking workers and all of that stuff. Like, I literally have half a mind to just, like, cancel all my services and switch over to, I don't know, reading books or something that would be smart. Or watching my physical media that people get paid for. So yeah, that's all I have to say for today. Anybody else? Anything else?
No,
Can go out.
Kristen, you hit the nail on the head. You were preaching. That was
My husband is always like, there are several things that Kristen loves, and then he goes down the list, and one of them he calls giving class.
yes, yes.
That is so true.
I think you both hit it on the head when you were talking about the things that Chapek did, because, like you said, they were responsible for that sharp increase. But Bob Iger had the mind to. Bob Iger could have done any of those things, but he said, "Hey, this slow and steady is going to be far better than this. Oh, look at our profits jump," and then there's going to be a big drop because these unintended consequences that we had no clue that. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you boil a frog alive?
Just a little bit of time.
Because we've been hating on Chapek a lot this episode, but let us not forget that a lot of the things that he started doing were under Bob Iger.
Mr. Iger, yep.
But again, as I said, like way back then, like Bob Iger, the difference between him and somebody else is like he's not gonna like pee on your head and tell you that it's raining.
It's rained, yes.
He's gonna be like, hey guys, there's gonna be a little pee.
Hey guys, sorry.
There's a little pee coming.
Oh my god. Okay, so that is where we're going to end today. Because that I feel like there's no further we can go from that. Cameron, Kristen, Ed, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure.
So much, guys. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a magical day.